Hi there YouTube, welcome back to this week's Black Powder video, and today I have the dreaded duplicate battalion, or more or less duplicate battalion, of the 2nd Battalion of the 28th Orange Nassau. Now, if you remember me saying in the last sort of, I've certainly mentioned it over the last couple of weeks worth of videos, that because there's basically no other company makes these figures in 28mm, you kind of got no choice but to basically buy all of them from Perry's. Now you could say, well, why don't you just like convert some others? But I mean, you're kind of stumped, because unless you've got I mean, theoretically you could say, well, why don't you just cut the heads off and put French heads on? But then the French heads don't have the type of plume that these guys have. So you kind of stumped, really. There's no easy way of converting these guys, even though they have, you know, basically the bottom half of them are basically more or less the same as Dutch Line or Dutch Militia. But we persevere, and like I say, I took a little bit of time between doing the first duplicate battalion and doing the 2nd battalion, and to tell the truth, I actually got through these guys really quite quickly. I basically finished them, well, I finished basing them today. I finished painting them yesterday, and I also did all the sort of base, I did all their base stuff more or less today. By the time I finished these guys last night, it was already dark, and I tend not to paint when it's dark. So I basically left, I think I did 2 guys with the Daz clay, and then left them for this morning. And now obviously these guys have only got like a thin layer of Daz clay on, so they dry relatively quick. Yeah, I basically finished them, and then while the Daz clay was drying, I did a little bit of work on the division commanders, which is basically the last element of actually completing the actual division. I guess I just finished off basing them a couple of minutes ago, you know, actually finishing off the flocking. Now I might possibly put some tufts on them, but I tend not to put that much, not that much sort of tufts wise onto sort of infantry stands, because I find that you can basically only either put them at the front of the base or the back of the base, and it's very difficult to try and put them anywhere else. So it always looks kind of odd that whenever you see a battalion with tufts, the tufts always seem to be in the same sort of place, and for some reason that sort of annoys me. So it's very rare that I actually put tufts onto troops' bases these days. So yeah, let's get going. So I've been waffling on for 3 minutes. Let's get going on these chaps here. So let's first of all zoom in. Now obviously these guys, like I said, are the Perry, so you have kind of seen them before, but I did actually manage to sort out an extra officer. So because strangely you only actually get 1 officer for these boys, which is really annoying, because as you know, I'm one of those guys that likes 2 officers minimum. So I actually ended up converting a figure that used to be a Belgian line officer that was spare. So let's get going with the blurb. So like I said, these guys are the 2nd Battalion of the 28th Orange Nassau. They numbered 688 men. Quite a bit lower than the 1st Battalion, that was 893. They're commanded by a Major P. Schuyler, or Schleier. Yeah, let's get going and give you a closer look at them. So let's start off with the one of the flanker companies, because as usual these guys follow the sort of the Dutch style of having flankers. So we can get the light into a good position. So here we go. So, like I say, I mean they're basically exactly the same figures as the 1st Battalion. Basically painted them in the same sort of colours. They have, of course, the flankers have these sort of puffs on their shoulders, and they have the green tips to their plumes. So that's the flankers. Then we'll go for the 4th company. The 4th company, of course, just made up of normal troops. And again, 4 regular Perry's guys, because obviously you only get 1 box of each type of figure. So of course these guys are the regular sort of Fusiliers, and they're all sort of randomly picked. I mean, I suppose the only sort of people that are on purposely, the guys with the slightly turned heads, I always make sure that they're looking at either another trooper or the command stand or something like that, and not sort of looking off to the side at nothing if they're on the sort of the edges. But obviously these guys are kind of in the middle of the rear line, so it doesn't matter. Second line of, or the second company of flankers here. So you can get just a little bit of better light on these boys. I think that's better, isn't it? So again, we have more or less the same idea going on. I did actually manage to finish, because I think I seem to remember mentioning that the first time I did the 8 flankers, I kind of slowed down quite a lot, and that's what they ended up taking me an extra day or 2 to actually finish, and that put my whole sort of week a little bit offhand. And I didn't seem to have that problem at all this time round. I seemed to complete these guys really quickly, and the sort of problem, I guess it's where I was painting a lot of elite and front rank, and then when you come down to Perry's, it's just that little bit sort of, they've got slightly sort of thinner strapping and stuff. So we're going to start off with, let's go for the musicians. Musician stands next. So again, these guys are exactly the same. The same sort of drum design with the blue and the white and the red triangles. And other than that, exactly the same, really. Again, they're all 28th figures from the range. I think it's the same drummer figure, but again, like I said, there's not much I can really do about it. Because they are so different. You know, it's very difficult to try and hunt down unless you carve up, you know, several other figures, which kind of defeats the point. There's no real way of you being able to sort of sort these guys out unless you do some sort of weird like proxy with the pom-poms on their Shakos or whatever. So next up we'll go for the NCO squad now. I decided to make this guy here with the non-Shako head guy, the sort of the NCO. I think he's actually a corporal. This guy, no, he's not. I think he's a sergeant actually, with the one stripe. Yeah, so I decided to make him the sergeant this time, and I used the actual sergeant figure himself on the command base as the sort of higher ranked NCO. Yeah, again, you know, 3 bog standard sort of Fusilier figures along with him. Now, like I said, if you remember me saying, you get this guy in the command pack, and he's basically like exactly the same as the other guys, apart from the fact he hasn't got a Shako. It would have been a lot better if they just skipped him and put another officer in, personally, in my opinion. But there you go. So that is the NCO stand. Now, I did in classic style bugger up my basing. I put this guy onto the number 1 stand because I actually had already had these written down beforehand. Somehow I managed to mess the bases up, but it's not the end of the world. I can always pick up this stand to read the command group. So that is the NCO's group, and then finally the command group. Now, you know, again, I think I was pretty chuffed with the way this unit turned out in the end. This figure at the back here, he actually began life as a Belgian officer from the probably advancing pack. It's hard to tell whether he's advancing or standing, but he's from one of their command packs. I think what I did was I actually cut his head off of a spare trooper. And basically just used his head as the officer's head. Now I did have to do a little bit of modification to the collar again, but I think it worked out really cool in the end, actually, and I'm very happy with you know, not only getting a second officer, but having one. Strangely enough, their positions are almost exactly the same. I mean, if you look at them, they're almost carbon copies, but this guy just has his sword at a different angle. And for the Major Shiler himself, I did have to make him a plastic putty pauldron for his shoulder to give him the correct rank of a major, with the 2 epaulets. And then finally, in the background here, we have the sergeant figure, who I actually altered his arm positions to make him look like a different figure. Originally his arm was up pointing, and I basically, with some pliers, really carefully squeezed his hand together and moved his pointing finger sort of back in line with the rest of his hand. And then carefully sort of bent the arm down to give it a position like perhaps he's about to bring his arm up to point. So it's not quite sort of naturally at the side, but it's kind of about to sort of be moved up, as he's about to shout something at one of the troopers, sort of off to the side, sort of thing, past the flag bearer and the junior officer. Again, the final in GMB flag. Of course, these guys didn't historically carry flags, but of course, like I said, I had the spare packet of flags. There's no point in me keeping them, so I decided to use one, and I've got one spare. If I ever decide to do, you know, another, if I decide to do the reserve Nassau, which you know, possibly may do. It's only like I mean, it's basically one regiment of, you know, one French style regiment again. It's basically, you know, the 3 battalions of 1st Nassau rather than you know, the ones that are included in the 2nd Brigade of the 2nd Netherlands. But yeah, really nice flag. You can't really complain about that, really. And the standard bearer was just again the standard guy that came with the command pack. I think he's a duplicate of the original battalion too. But I think you know, I think I've done a pretty admirable job of just making them that's a little bit different. You know, they've got a different command stand apart from the standard. I mean, this chap here was the secondary officer in the first iteration, and of course he didn't have the extra pauldron, so he makes him look a little bit different. And then of course this guy, like I say, began life as a Belgian line officer, and I chopped the head off a trooper, because I have actually got a fair few, you know, at least probably a pack of each type, more or less spare, just because of the way that it sort of worked out in the end. I could have possibly even, you know, perhaps I brought a pack by accident, actually, thinking about it, especially the flankers. But like I say, it's not the end of the world, and yeah, overall I think I'm really happy with them. So that is the end of the video. I'm really happy to have finished these guys. Like I say, these now finish the regiment and also finish the brigade. I've already done the brigade commander, if you remember from last week, and I've actually already started working on the divisional commander. What's his name? Popocina. And like I say, I've got the Perry's pack for that. I'll actually bring the figures in. This is how far I've got on them so far. So as you can see, we have the horse well on his way. He's in fact, the horse flesh on him is practically finished. Using my normal sort of style of painting, it's very quick. This guy was probably got to this stage within probably 20 minutes if you're doing them on his own. Very quick. Obviously he's got to have his reins and his saddle details done, but he's more or less done. I think I might put some markings on him, and that's it. I'll be happy. after I've done the saddle work and stuff, and the reins. So that's the horse. He's probably the furthest along. And then figures wise, we have the guide holding his horse. Now obviously, again, because it's a 60 millimeter round base, I could only fit so much onto it without it looking over cluttered. So I managed to squeeze in, I think this is all you get in the box, or do you get something else as well? I really can't remember. I think this is all you get. So you get the guide holding his horse, and you get Popocina and Rebecca. This is Popocina, and this is Rebecca. And as you can see, all I've done on these guys is I've given Rebecca has obviously had his blue done. I've given him a dark blue jacket. I tend to sort of give my officers darker blue jackets now. I've sort of started doing that for a while now. And of course he has white breeches as well, or white trousers. And this is this chap here is Popocina, and he will have grey trousers. But as you can see, I've already done I've done the colour for his map. I've done his gloves. I think I gave his waist belt a coat of white as well, so that the orange goes on it a lot stronger. And I've also done white over the areas of his tails where they will be red. And obviously just done his sword there. And like I say, it's basically more or less as soon as I give him his grey trousers, then he'll basically almost be completely base coloured. You know, I can go in and do the red and the obviously paint his pauldrons and the buttons and everything, and will be given a brown coat because they'll be gold. But yeah, that's how far I've got on those chaps. So yeah, that's the end. Hope you enjoyed it. It's quite a quick one today. What are we going at? Oh, actually, it's not a quick one at all. I totally lie. It's 17 minute. Anyway, we're all done. I hope you enjoyed it, and look out for the command stand next week, and I may well also try and do a grand overview of the Division 2. So until next time, I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye bye.